Ever find yourself in a conversation where your eyes suddenly decide to study the wall, or the floor, or the mysterious, fascinating corner of the ceiling? Meanwhile, someone is talking to you and you're nodding along like, yes, yes, absolutely, while your gaze is basically on vacation. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone you know. Maybe you make eye contact for 2 seconds, panic internally, and then pretend your shoelaces are the most important thing in the universe. It looks simple from the outside. You avoid eye contact. Big deal. But underneath that tiny shift of the eyes is a surprisingly complex psychology about safety, identity, power, and connection. And once you see what's really happening, you'll never look at those small glances the same way again. Let's step inside that quiet moment where your eyes look away and talk about what it's really saying. First, there's the I'm thinking, not performing type. Picture this. You're explaining something important, maybe sharing an idea, maybe trying to say how you really feel. As soon as you try to maintain eye contact, your brain suddenly loads about 40 tabs at once. Words stumble. Sentences get weird. So you look away. At the table, the side of the person's face, the passing traffic, and suddenly the thoughts line up again. For people like this, eye contact isn't just social interaction. It's cognitive pressure. Holding someone's gaze feels like having a spotlight on the inside of your head. Psychologists often point out that eye contact consumes mental energy. It forces your brain to process social cues, emotional context, and your own self-awareness all at once. Looking away temporarily frees up bandwidth, so you can think more clearly. It's not rudeness, not distance. It's actually problem solving. If this feels familiar, you might notice you make more eye contact when you're listening than when you're speaking. You're not hiding, you're focusing. And sometimes that's the most honest form of presence. Then there's the quiet protector. The person who avoids eye contact not because they're shy, but because eye contact feels exposing, too intimate, too direct. Imagine meeting someone new, and they hold your gaze steadily, warmly. You feel seen, maybe a little too seen. Your inner voice whispers, "Okay, relax. Don't give away everything." And your eyes drift away, softly, almost politely. This version of avoiding eye contact is about emotional armor. Somewhere along the way, your nervous system learned that being seen can also mean being judged, misunderstood, or even rejected. So the eyes become a doorway you half close, not shut, just guarded. The psychology here is deeply self-protective. Eye contact signals openness, vulnerability. It silently says, "I'm here with you." When someone has experienced criticism, social anxiety, or a sense of not being enough, sustained eye contact can trigger an instinct to withdraw. Not to disappear, but to stay safer in the background. If this sounds like you, notice something interesting. You probably make eye contact easily with people you deeply trust. When there's no performance, no pressure, your eyes aren't afraid, they're measuring safety. Another profile is the quiet detector, the observer. This person avoids eye contact not because they're anxious, but because they're busy reading everything else. Picture a social gathering, people talking, laughing, clinking cups. One person stands slightly off to the side, glancing around casually. They're registering voices, tone shifts, body posture, subtle tension. They look away from faces because they're absorbing the entire scene like a wide-angle lens. For the observer, eye contact narrows attention. It locks them into one interaction, and their instinct is to step back and understand the bigger picture. Psychologically, this is tied to hyper-awareness and sensitivity to context. They're attuned to dynamics. Who's comfortable? Who's pretending? Who wants to leave but hasn't said it yet? Avoiding eye contact becomes a way to maintain perspective. Not aloof, not disconnected, just quietly gathering information. And yet, these same people can appear distant or uninterested, when inside they're deeply engaged. If you recognize yourself here, you might realize you remember the smallest details afterward. You just process connection differently. Less intensity, more observation. Then there's a very different twist. The quiet challenger. This is the person who avoids eye contact because eye contact feels like a negotiation. For power, for status, for control, and they would rather step out of that game entirely. Imagine being in a conversation where someone holds eye contact a bit too firmly. It starts to feel like a contest. Who looks away first loses. Who blinks becomes less confident. And some people simply refuse to play. They glance away, relax their body, and convey something else entirely. "I'm not competing with you. I don't need to prove confidence. I'm choosing peace over performance." This form of eye avoidance isn't fear, it's neutrality. Psychology-wise, it often shows up in people who are self-contained, introspective, or uninterested in dominance displays. They don't want to win conversations. They want calm exchanges, thoughtful pauses, and authenticity. Of course, it can be misunderstood. Others might read it as disinterest or lack of engagement, but internally, it's a subtle refusal to turn interaction into a battlefield. And finally, there's the one many people never admit, the mirror avoidant, the person who avoids eye contact because eye contact makes them more aware of themselves than the other person. You're talking. The other person looks right into your eyes. Suddenly, you become hyper-conscious of your face, your expression, your posture, your existence. Your brain shifts from, what am I saying, to, how am I being seen right now? This isn't vanity, it's self-consciousness amplified. Eye contact turns into a mirror you didn't ask for. Underneath, it's often tied to self-criticism, perfectionism, or the belief that you must present a version of yourself that's acceptable. Avoiding eye contact softens that pressure. But here's the twist. When you break eye contact, you may feel relief, yet also a subtle disconnect. A moment of, I missed something there. Because eye contact can also anchor us in shared reality, reminding us we're actually with another human, not performing for one. Across all these profiles, one thing becomes clear. Avoiding eye contact is rarely about disrespect. It's a language of nervous systems, personality patterns, personal history, and perception. Sometimes it says, I'm thinking. Sometimes I'm protecting myself. Sometimes I'm watching more than you realize. And sometimes I'm not here to play dominance games. The real question isn't, why don't you look people in the eye more? It's, what happens inside you when you try? Notice your breath. Notice the tension in your shoulders. Notice whether eye contact makes you feel closer, or cornered, or seen, or suddenly aware of your own heartbeat. That reaction is the real psychology. So which version feels closest to you? The thinker who looks away to organize thoughts? The protector who guards vulnerability? The observer who reads the room? The challenger who refuses the social arm wrestle? Or the self-aware mirror who gets pulled into self-consciousness? Maybe you're a mix. Most of us are. If this gave you something to reflect on, stay curious. Pay attention to your next conversation. Notice when your eyes wander, and gently ask yourself why. And if you want more videos that explore these quiet behaviors we almost never talk about, you know where to find them. How does this land for you?